Chapter 1: The Descent into Darkness. Hidden deep within a dense forest, nestled between rugged mountains and flowing rivers, lay the small, isolated town of Eldridge. With its cobblestone streets, Victorian-style houses, and a clock tower that had long since ceased to chime, Eldridge seemed like a place lost in time. It was a town untouched by the modern world, where life moved at a slower, more deliberate pace. But behind the picturesque facade, Eldridge held a dark secret. It began with whispers, carried on the wind through the narrow, fog-shrouded streets. Whispers of strange occurrences, of people disappearing without a trace, and of ghostly figures seen wandering the town at night. The townsfolk spoke of a curse, one that had plagued Eldridge for generations. Few dared to speak of it openly, but the fear was palpable, a constant presence that hung over the town like a dark cloud. Chapter 2: The Newcomer. Eldridge's sinister reputation had long kept outsiders at bay, but that changed when Sarah Bennett arrived. Sarah was a writer, drawn to Eldridge by its eerie charm and the promise of a secluded place to work on her next novel. She was fascinated by the town's history and intrigued by the rumors of hauntings. Little did she know, she was about to become part of the town's dark legend. Sarah rented a small cottage on the edge of town, near the forest. The townspeople were wary of her, their eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and fear. They warned her to stay indoors after dark, to avoid the old cemetery, and to never venture into the forest. But Sarah, driven by her thirst for a good story, dismissed their warnings as mere superstition. Chapter 3: The First Night. On her first night in Eldridge, Sarah was awakened by a strange noise. It was a soft, rhythmic tapping, like someone knocking on a door. Groggy and disoriented, she stumbled out of bed and made her way to the front door. But when she opened it, there was no one there. The tapping continued, echoing through the quiet night. It seemed to be coming from the direction of the forest. Curiosity getting the better of her, Sarah grabbed a flashlight and set out to investigate. The forest loomed before her, its trees casting long, sinister shadows. The tapping grew louder as she ventured deeper into the woods, leading her to a clearing. There, in the center of the clearing, stood an old, decrepit house. The house looked as though it had been abandoned for years. Its windows were broken, the roof sagging, and the walls covered in ivy. But what caught Sarah's attention was the figure standing on the porch. It was a woman, dressed in a tattered, old-fashioned gown, her face obscured by a veil. She was the source of the tapping, her bony hand knocking against the door in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Chapter 4: The Haunting Begins. Sarah called out to the woman, but she received no response. She took a step closer, and the woman vanished, dissolving into the night like a wisp of smoke. Shaken, Sarah returned to her cottage, her mind racing with questions. Who was the woman? And why did she appear to be haunting the old house in the forest? The next day, Sarah decided to visit the town's library to learn more about Eldridge's history. The librarian, an elderly woman named Mrs. Hawthorne, seemed reluctant to speak of the town's past. But after some prodding, she finally relented and handed Sarah a dusty, leather-bound book. The book detailed the town's dark history, filled with tales of tragedy and death. It spoke of a family, the Millers, who had lived in the old house in the forest. The family had been wealthy and influential, but their lives were marked by misfortune. The parents had died under mysterious circumstances, and their daughter, Emily, had vanished without a trace. Some believed she had been taken by the spirits that haunted the forest. Chapter 5: The Investigation. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah delved deeper into the mystery of the Miller family. She discovered that Emily had been a talented artist, known for her hauntingly beautiful paintings. Many of her works depicted scenes of the forest, filled with ghostly figures and strange symbols. Sarah felt a growing connection to Emily, as if their fates were intertwined. One evening, while exploring the attic of her cottage, Sarah stumbled upon a hidden compartment. Inside, she found a collection of Emily's paintings, along with a journal. The journal chronicled Emily's descent into madness, filled with frantic scribblings and disturbing drawings. Emily wrote of hearing voices, of seeing ghostly apparitions, and of being pursued by a dark, malevolent force. Sarah realized that the same force that had tormented Emily was now after her. The tapping on her door, the ghostly woman in the forest, and the strange occurrences in the town were all connected. Eldritch was cursed, and Sarah was caught in its web. Chapter 6: The Dark Revelation. As Sarah's investigation continued, she began to experience increasingly terrifying events. She would wake up to find her furniture rearranged, her belongings scattered, and eerie messages scrawled on the walls. The townspeople grew more distant, their fear of the curse driving them away. Sarah felt isolated and vulnerable, but she was determined to uncover the truth. One night, while poring over Emily's journal, Sarah found a passage that chilled her to the bone. Emily had written about a ritual, an ancient ceremony that could summon the spirits of the dead. She believed that her family had performed the ritual, and in doing so, had unleashed a powerful and vengeful spirit. This spirit, she wrote, was the source of the curse that plagued Eldritch. Sarah knew she had to find a way to break the curse. She decided to visit the old house in the forest once more, hoping to find clues that would lead her to the truth. Armed with Emily's journal and a newfound determination, she ventured into the forest. Chapter 7: The Final Confrontation. The old house was even more foreboding than Sarah remembered. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of the past. Sarah pushed open the door and stepped inside, her flashlight casting long shadows on the walls. As she explored the house, she felt a growing sense of dread. The air grew colder, and the floorboards creaked under her feet. She made her way to the basement, where she found an old, dusty trunk. Inside, she discovered a collection of ritualistic objects, candles, an ancient book, and a blood-stained dagger. Sarah realized that the Miller family had indeed performed the ritual, and in doing so, had damned themselves and the entire town. She knew what she had to do. She had to perform a counter-ritual to banish the spirit and break the curse. Chapter 8: The Ritual. With Emily's journal as her guide, Sarah set up the ritual in the old house. She placed the candles in a circle, recited the ancient incantations, and prepared herself for what was to come. The air grew thick with malevolent energy, and the house seemed to come alive, the walls whispering and the floor shaking. As she began the ritual, the ghostly figure of Emily appeared before her. Emily's face was twisted with sorrow and pain, and her eyes were filled with a plea for help. Sarah continued the incantations, her voice rising above the chaos. The spirit fought back, lashing out with dark tendrils of energy. Sarah felt her strength waning, but she pressed on, determined to end the curse. With a final, desperate cry, she plunged the dagger into the center of the circle. Chapter 9: The Aftermath. The house was engulfed in a blinding light, and the spirit let out a deafening scream. The walls shook, and the floor cracked open, swallowing the ritual objects. Sarah felt a surge of energy, and then, silence. When she opened her eyes, the house was still. The oppressive darkness had lifted, and the air was clear. Sarah knew the curse had been broken. She made her way back to the town, exhausted but victorious. The townspeople were amazed to see her return. The dark cloud that had hung over Eldritch for generations had lifted, and the town was finally free. They hailed Sarah as a hero, and she felt a sense of peace knowing she had helped to break the curse. Chapter 10: A New Beginning. In the years that followed, Eldritch began to thrive. The dark history of the town was gradually forgotten, replaced by a new sense of hope and renewal. The townspeople rebuilt their lives, free from the fear that had once haunted them. Sarah stayed in Eldritch, finding solace in the quiet, peaceful town. She continued to write, her experiences in Eldritch providing her with endless inspiration. She knew that some scars would never fully heal, but she found strength in the knowledge that she had faced the darkness and triumphed. The story of the haunted town of Eldritch became a legend, passed down through generations. It served as a reminder of the power of courage, determination, and the human spirit. Sarah Bennett's name became synonymous with bravery, and her story inspired others to face their own fears and challenges. Eldritch remained a place of mystery and beauty, a town where the past and present coexisted in harmony. The old house in the forest was left to nature, a silent testament to the dark history that had once plagued the town. And though the whispers of the past still lingered, they were no longer filled with fear, but with a sense of hope and redemption. And so, the legend of Eldridge lived on, a story of darkness and light, of fear and courage, and of the enduring power of the human spirit.
Don't forget to subscribe.